And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Larry and Spencer, and we're going to be discussing Loki episode number 4, the Nexus event. Let's start. So last week, I had a lot of complaints. Some of them were addressed this week, so I'm going to say, hey, good job. You're doing a few things I like. I still have a few concerns, but in terms of the pacing and story progression and actually feeling like 40 minutes of entertainment that didn't waste my time, I think this episode did probably the best job of the entire series so far. You guys agree, or how do y'all feel about this episode?
I agree. This episode was by far the best as far as, like you said, progressing the story. It to me, it gave more backstory in a much shorter period of time, and we finally found out what happened with Loki. We find out what happens every time somebody gets zapped by one of those things. Like it's, they don't necessarily die, but I guess next we figure out what actually happens to them. So I think that this, although it answered some questions, it caused some new questions that I actually feel irrelevant instead of why the fuck am I watching this? So this is actually, the questions that I have from this are way better. I actually want them to be answered.
Yeah, same here. Like it opens up a new series of questions, that I'm very curious about. I'm very interested to see where all this goes. Like what is this? Is this basically the Nexus? Where all these Lokis are now? Is that what we've been referring to as the Nexus this whole time? What sort of secrets are the leaders of the TVA hiding, or the one leader of the TVA that we've seen, if she is in fact in charge?
She clearly is serving someone. Whom that is, everyone has a theory online. I guess we can jump straight into that. We learned, so at the end of the episode, Sylvie and Loki are brought in to meet the timekeepers, and they're basically just robots. I'd said it, I think last week or a couple weeks ago. Are we going to have a Wizard of Oz situation? And it's exactly what it 100%. Was. It was completely that. So turns out that the timekeepers, all that whole story is all BS. The truth we don't completely know. What we know is that if you heard, people were pointing out that when the machine she cut the head off one and then the other shut down, you hear sort of a laugh. So there's somebody. Now everybody's saying, could it be Kang? Like that's the big, like, oh, is it Kang the Conqueror? We do know that character has been confirmed for the Ant-Man film, but that doesn't come out until 2023. Then the other popular theory is that perhaps it's another Loki variant that's doing this. Either way, depending on how the story is told, I don't really mind who it is. What I do mind is how they acquired the technology and the purpose for what it is they're doing. Those two things need to be clever. As far as who's doing it, I really don't care. What are your guys' views on who it could be, and how do you feel that particular part of the story should play out?
Unless Kevin Feige is full of shit, which he very, very well may be, I don't think it would be Kang, because he's already said that he doesn't want to intertwine the two universes or whatever. Now, if say it is, and Kevin Feige comes out and be like, "Oh, gotcha, just kidding," then
well, also they could be making and I'm only saying this, they could be making some changes to that initial plan, just because they were shooting episodes of Loki all the way up to like 2 weeks ago.
Well, yeah, they could have made changes to the plan, because that's been everybody's biggest gripe, is that these standalone things don't tie into anything else. Who gives a shit? So they may be changing that. And if they do, then that to me would show, just like Thanos, where they had all these little hints that it's him, hint, 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 hint of the Infinity Gauntlet. I don't know that I want Kang the Conqueror to be the next big bad guy. Like I wouldn't mind him being a bad guy, but I don't want him to be the next Thanos.
When I heard he was going to be in the Ant-Man movie, my assumption was he wasn't going to be, just because why would that be his day? You know what I mean? Like, clearly he's going to be a villain, but I don't think they care enough about him if originally that was going to be his debut. I don't know.
That's why I don't think it's him in this.
Yeah, and I got to agree with that too. I think the people who heard the laugh and thought it was Kang, I think that's reaching a little bit because if I recall, and maybe I have to go back and watch the scene, but I did hear the laugh, but I also believe I saw the animatronics, laughing, the remaining ones that still had their heads. So I don't think that was Kang doing that or anything. For all we know, it could be the person that we were seeing, the people we're seeing now leading the TVA, and she's perhaps just the sole person still left in the know of whatever their true purpose is, whatever that may be. But I really don't think it's going to be a Kang or anything. And if it is Kang, then that tells me that they care less about Ant-Man than any of the other properties.
So so your theory is that there's no one higher than her?
See, I have two theories. There's no one higher than her, and the other one that everybody else came to, that it's a Loki. But I theorize that because it fits with their formula of you're fighting a mirror image of yourself, and they haven't strayed from that so far. So there's a pretty good chance that it's a Loki, or hell, maybe she's a Loki, since we saw that Lokis can vary quite a bit. So she could be a Loki.
I've
This,
heard the. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, what I hope is that they're going to tie this into the movies, because this is kind of showing the Nexus event, showing the timelines and stuff. This is, along with what happened with Wanda, not so much Falcon, Winter Soldier, but the other two so far, that they're tying into this multiverse. And I would really like to see that the whole thing is tied up by Mephisto. It would seem like something he would, because similar to Loki, he's got a very similar MO, just a little bit more evil.
My biggest hope is that and this isn't a gripe. The MCU has made the decision to set up a level of technology that's pretty insane in terms of what they can do. They can literally make magic not work. Like, they have that ability. They have the ability to literally travel at any point in time and mess with time, to the pruning, as they call it, where they wipe things from time. Now we know it appears they go to a place. So they're going to have to, whoever invented this tech, they're going to have to me, that's the biggest make or break of this show. You're going to have to explain that to me, and it's going to have to not be stupid.
Ooh, Doctor Doom.
I do not want him associated with this show.
I don't either. However, well, I would really, I don't, after watching the first couple episodes, because I feel like it would be a letdown. But I think had the first 3 episodes been like this episode, I would have been okay with it. But, and also if I knew that it was going to be able to tie into the movie universe, I don't want him to be the TV universe villain. I really don't. But
Yeah, no. If they do him properly, there's some rumors, and I won't go into them now, but there are rumors about plans for the character, and they're pretty big if they prove to be true. But another rumor, not a rumor, a theory, was that what if Mobius is a Thor variant? and I thought that was interesting. But yeah, this whole variant thing.
Well, yeah, and that leads some credence to my idea that maybe Mobius's boss is a Loki variant. Because I thought about that after I said it, and Loki quickly became friends with Mobius. Like, it was kind of like that after they had their game of cat and mouse and trying to outwit each other, that they seem like they're fairly close friends now. Maybe that's why she's so easily became friends with Mobius also, because like she's a Loki, and then maybe that's one of those things that are consistent through the timelines, that these two characters get along fairly well, or maybe they get along well because he is a Thor variant, and it could be one or the other.
what if it's because I know that Sylvie, they've referenced her basically, even though she's a variant, being Enchantress. What if the person in charge is a Enchantress variant?
Well, that'd be it, and I'd still,
which
I
would still be similar to a Loki variant, but
it's a variant of Sylvie. It's a variant of a variant, which is possible, and and also likely because it still fits the Marvel trope that I complain about all the time of your fight,
yep.
which is heroes fighting a mirror image of themselves. So that's possible.
The we find out that Sylvie was taken as a child, um, but that's all they tell us. And, when that sequence started at the beginning, I was starting to get a little excited. I was like, "Oh, cool! We're going to get her origins." We we didn't. We know she was a child. She was taken and she escaped. That's all they tell us. They didn't give us any other details about her, which is fine. But it was one of those moments where I thought, "Oh, they're going to give us something," and they're like, "No, we're not. We're not really going to tell you much." Um, but yeah, we found that out about Sylvie. I think the most shocking thing about the episode, and this is where I sat back and said, "Bravo, good job, Disney," was the odd sort of love story they're crafting. Because Disney does not like to take chances in any way, shape, or form. They just don't. And to have Loki sort of seeming to fall for Sylvie to some degree, that's weird, and that is weird. And people were talking about, oh, the show's so weird. I'm like, no, it's not. Okay, that's an element that's like, oh shit, that is odd and bizarre, and they actually seem to be going for it, in this story, and I can appreciate that.
I loved it because it. They've been making Loki out to be this anti-hero or whatever they want to call it, but Loki's not a good guy. Like, he's been the villain through
He
several.
slaughtered all the people in
Yeah.
New York. Yeah, like
Yes,
no one remember.
he's not a good guy. He is a super big narcissist. So for him to be so narcissistic that he falls in love with a version of himself makes so much sense.
I get the feeling, however, that realizing what they've done, we're due soon for an announcement from Disney that they are not genetically the same or something. Because it kind of seems like that at first, that it's like, okay, yeah, this is a little messed up. This is this is going to, like you said, that's a much weirder relationship than I expected. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
No, I've heard no theories that they were going to go in this direction.
I mean, if it were, it would make sense for the Enchantress to be a completely different person.
But it's one of those things where, like I said, it's so like out there, and like I said, they don't ever do anything like this story wise. So I sort of appreciated it a little bit. Now, like you said, they may go back on it to some degree. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
It is so far out there, but it also makes so much sense. Like, it's one of those things where you didn't see it coming, but for it to happen makes complete sense. And this has kind of been Loki's redemption story. Like, throughout this whole thing, it's him kind of feeling bad, him kind of reaching out to Mobius. It's been all these things, but I think at the end of the day, he's still not a good guy. Right?
Here it is. They have a child.
Oh god!
We jump to the future. That child goes back in time and starts the TVA. One of those weird.
And that's why they're like sort of mutant lizard men.
Exactly. So Mobius gets pruned. It's supposed to be a very emotional, sad scene, but Hiddleston did a great job in performing in that scene, but it's sort of deflated by the end credit scene when it appears pruning does not kill. Although that does bring a big question up about pruning, because if like people were pointing out stuff from that scene, like that's Avengers Tower. And those are structures from Marvel lore. So when they set those little bombs off and it sort of wipes that zone out, does it basically transport those areas to this whatever world this is? Mm-hmm. And if so, has this world developed its own government, and like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a really cool idea. We'll hopefully they'll explore it more in the next episode, I'm assuming, but That does bring a lot of possible questions. And what happens to all those people now at the end of this series? Let's say they defeat the TVA or whatever. There's nowhere for them to go, right? Like, what do you do with thousands or millions of Loki variants and other variants? Like that stuff's really cool, and I fucking hope they don't bullshit it and just sort of wipe it away, in some dumbass way.
Well, and if they're smart, then what they're using television for is to give you, and this may be what that is. They're using the shows potentially to give you a deeper dive of the Nexus and what a Nexus event is, and this is a Nexus, which is an amalgam of these timelines or a point in which they all converge in some way or something, and maybe that's where they're going with it, or I don't know, maybe I've given them too much credit, because whenever I overthink these, like it's
That's
always
the problem.
Yeah, it's much simpler than it even is in the comic books, which is
wherever they sent all the Loki variants. I don't know if that's a different timeline, a different place, a different plane of existence, a different universe. But even if, let's say, Loki and his self-love, whatever, Sylvie, they if they take out the TVA and they send all these variants that were working for the TVA somewhere, they could all end up wherever it is that they're zapping people to, because that's a plane of existence, whether it's a different time and space, whether it's a different universe, a different timeline. Like, we're not 100% sure yet, but wherever it is they exist, they're there. So the TVA employees that end up that Loki doesn't brutally murder have a place to exist still.
absolutely. And
Yeah,
well, I was going to say, like a younger, more optimistic me, would have assumed that what this is that this leads to that this is potentially a lead into Exiles, which just sort of a reality hopping Marvel show, much like the book, where you have these different variants of heroes from different universes, just sort of fixing time and space. But
the build to what they've shown us so far. I mean, we've seen this massive city and the TVA agents and their sort of their structure and how they operate. To me, there's no way to. I mean, there is a way, but to me, you've established something that you can't just throw away with a snap of a finger. Now, maybe they will. Maybe they will. But one would think that perhaps how this all ends. We only got 2 more episodes. Does someone like Loki or Sylvie or both take over the TVA and run it, and maybe they have a new line of whatever their mission is or whatever. Like, that's also what I'm thinking. Like, how does this show continue in a way and be the future of the MCU? Because to me, it's almost has to, unless if they just wipe it away somehow, it'll be cheap. Sort of like, my complaint with Falcon and Winter Soldier. You establish the serum is back. Oh no, we have new serum. We have a scientist that can develop it. We have a team of supervillains or, terrorists who are using it. And you kill all of them and wipe out all the vials by the end of the episode. So you completely just purge all potential stories in the future dealing with that. I don't want them to do that with this.
No, that would be garbage. But it is a possibility that it'll happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. There's a good possibility that they'll try to clean things up so that it feels very much back to square one in time for the movies. Which has been the case with a lot of these shows. That's been our major complaint, that things tend to end in a way where it's almost like you never needed to watch this show for context for anything. Or at least that's been the problem with the previous shows.
Have y'all been hearing? I'm not going to go into them for the audience, but I am curious. Have y'all been hearing all the rumored spoilers, all the leaks for Spider-Man?
And I haven't.
There's been a lot this week or this past week. Only reason I ask, and like I said, I'm not going to go into them here, but a lot of them, it ties to multiverse stuff. Like, we always knew that film was going to have ties to the multiverse. We knew Doctor Strange was going to be a part of it. But there's some of the rumors, if they're true, I don't see. See, this is what's bothering me. I don't see how that film exists without the Loki series tying into it. Like I don't at all. I do not see how that's possible. And
Well,
so that's something that's puzzling me. Like, well, maybe it does tie in, or I don't know.
the only spoiler that I heard was that Zendaya and Tom Holland were officially
Yeah,
out.
my guy.
I was like, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, I haven't heard any of these rumors. It's
Well, they're it's a lot of multiverse stuff, and I'll just leave it at that. And characters from other timelines and universes will be in the film supposedly. That there's proof now, so there's actually it will happen.
well, actually, yeah, I take that back. Have heard about that. That like even different Spider-Man properties will be referenced.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's interesting that this is where Marvel's going because while multiverse and following subject matter of the multiverse and time travel and stuff, it's interesting. But if they do that wrong, it could make things really sloppy. So I really hope that they handle this in a very very controlled way.
I think what they're going to do is just like Doctor Who's going to drop in. Sam from Quantum Leap's going to pop by.
Well, that brings up a good point. Even though you were joking there, that that may be what they use Loki or the Exile show for is it's like, okay, yeah, there was a plot hole in this movie. Well, the TVA cleaned that up. Or we addressed that in season 2 of Loki. Where the TVA took care of the plot holes from Ant-Man 3 or whatever.
Yeah, they could do that. I mean, it is sort of cool because what it seems like they're doing is taking a look at all the history of Marvel films outside of the MCU and basically saying we can pick and choose what we like, what we don't like, and basically have it come in some way by saying, oh, they came from another timeline and bring in actors and the characters, and it looks like it doesn't. They're doing that, and so it's just
Well,
like you said, it could go bad. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, I have hopes for it, but it could be messy depending.
it just seems like they're trying to reboot in a clever way because
Yeah.
they're trying to go to the next phase. They're trying to basically recast a bunch of people, and this is their way of recasting without just being like, all right, well, this person is no longer Cap. This person's Cap now.
And
So
DC's doing the same, with the Flash film, and this is completely confirmed, but Michael Keaton will be in the film, and he is playing the Batman 89. He is the Michael Keaton from the Tim Burton verse.
the Batman.
And so he's I don't know, they're going to basically do a Flashpoint type thing. Flash will end up in another universe. And I guess by the end, Keaton's Batman supposedly rumored to be coming over. And then they also have a Supergirl there that I think might come over. And so you're going to have Batman 89 existing in the current DCEU, being
The
potentially
best Batman.
in scene. Yeah, in scene, he'll be in scenes with, Jason Momoa's Aquaman, and like that's a thing that's about to happen. And so Marvel is doing the exact same thing with some upcoming films, especially Spider-Man. And it's sort of cool, but like I said, it could get real messy. I mean, but at this point, where else do they go? I mean, to be fair, you've got like 20 plus films.
Yeah.
You've exhausted a lot of the great storylines outside of some specific X-Men stories they've yet to touch.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons they're doing it. You look at what they could do with Loki and the multiverse of madness kind of storyline. I think it's their way of getting rid of a lot of things that aren't continuity and making new continuity. So, by getting rid of basically the X-Men, but they still could have Hugh Jackman be Wolverine. Like
Yeah.
they could kind of pick and choose what it is they want, and it would still make sense. Although at the end of the day, we're on Spider-Man number 7, and like no one's questioning it because no one really gives a shit. So I don't know why they felt they had to do it this way,
Well,
but
there's been, I mean, imagine a scenario. Okay, let's say the Spider-Man, everything happens. Okay, we bring in all these Spider-Man and everything. But let's say it does well enough, and let's say you wanted to say, you know what, we really miss Tobey Maguire. Let's have a spin-off film in his universe. Continue that. You know what I mean? Like creating a scenario where they could do that. We know for a
and 3 Toby
with the
air.
with Batman and stuff, the Batman, the Edward Cullen or whatever, that kid,
Robert Patterson.
there you go. That's going to exist on its own. It's not going to tie into the other stuff. It's going to be its own self-contained thing, similar to Joker. Joker is its own thing. And so DC is already doing weird things where they're making films, like there's gonna be like 3 different Batmans around, and they're doing it, and it looks like Marvel's like, well, fuck it, we'll do it too. We're gonna have a shit ton of different Spider-Man and all these various characters around. I think they've gotten to the point now where they're just like, whatever, we're just gonna do it.
Well, yeah, and like I don't know if it's emulating DC because that's definitely not a thing they want to do right now, at least on the live action movie sphere. Because DC, they're doing that mostly because they're like, okay, a lot of our movies are bombing. Maybe our properties shouldn't touch each other. Like, so if this succeeds, it succeeds on its own and by its own merits. And if we do a crossover thing, we don't have to acknowledge it. In the main, I don't know, Aquaman timeline.
That's what that film sort of is now. I guess going to be the root timeline because the Snyder cut supposedly is not canon. DC had come out and said that,
which is such for
exactly. So think about that for a second. The Snyder cut's not canon. That means the original Justice League movie is canon. That entire ending. I mean, that's fucking stupid. Like that.
The one that sucked and didn't make sense.
But Ben Affleck is supposedly going to be in the Flash movie also. But I'm like, so, but which timeline? Like,
it's going to be the Batman versus Superman, not the Snyder Cut Batman. It's going to be the.
And we already saw with Wonder Woman 84, completely ignores continuity. To the point where people were saying there's no scenario where that film exists in the same world as Justice League, Batman versus Superman, Man of Steel, etc. And so I don't know, DC's a mess, always has been. But Marvel seems to be oddly wanting to copy them, and this, like you said, Larry, this might not be the area that you want to copy.
Well, I think it's not so much that they're copying them. Like we said, it's a great way for them to basically start over, but basically cash in on the movie event that gets them to start over. Instead of just having it basically start over, they're going to have a movie that helps them start over. So where they can make, $12 billion.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because they're looking for different angles of their own, even if they did happen to be similar to some degree, or yeah, and in fact, they are taking things. They are copying in some ways because they're hinting at the Squadron Supreme in a lot of things, and characters like that, which are very much Marvel characters who are made to parody, well, not necessarily parody, but made to be comparable to DC characters. So I guess they're saying, and I knew they'd have to find a different angle at some point because, I think all of us were looking at the movies at some point and we went, okay, yeah, in comics, there's a lot of great small arcs, or there's a lot of great individual arcs. You can name 1,000 little, standalone Spider-Man or She-Hulk adventures that went pretty good for those characters on their own. But, when you get these big team-ups, Marvel doesn't have so many good giant team-ups. The whole Skrull invasion thing was horrible. Let's see, Civil War, didn't exactly end great. It was better on film the way they executed it. But, my point being, a lot of their big events don't translate as well to film, or they take a lot of work to translate well into a film. So I think they're reaching into new areas for that reason, because there's only so many places they can go for good material.
The only great Marvel crossover or event that I remember the last 20, 30 years was probably Messiah Complex, but that requires 30, 40 years of continuity to work. so you're right. A lot of people, I don't know why the hell people, they remember shit differently, because I've seen people act like Dark Reign or Secret Invasion, like they talk about them like they were good, and I'm like, what the fuck did you read? Because what of that was good? Like World War Hulk, even that, it's like it wasn't that good. I don't know what the hell they were talking about.
They don't either.
Because that's the buildup right now. Secret Invasion is going to be a big part of Marvel on, I guess, film and television for, I think, 2022, maybe 2023, for several years. A lot of shows are going to connect to it, and I just don't care specifically about that.
They're going to all connect on Sundays, and it's just going to tie into, like, I was going to like The Simpsons or something.
Maybe at this point they're doing a Simpsons crossover thing.
Yeah, that's just going to be a crossover like The Simpsons and some other Sunday show. I don't know.
Family Guy.
It's going to be like the old Saturday morning X-Men cartoon. That'd be too good.
They crossed over with the Spider-Man cartoon.
Remember? I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that'd be too good though.
Yeah. And then you could speak to this because you watched Doom Patrol. Yeah. I still need to, but you have the Titans show coming back, which I believe is in the same universe as the Doom Patrol. But then you have something like Peacemaker, which is tied to the Suicide Squad movie, and that's going to be a show, but I don't think it's in the same universe as Doom Patrol.
Just based off of the preview that I saw, it would fit because Doom Patrol, like the Titans, wasn't funny. It's more serious.
Yeah.
Even Doom Patrol has various serious undertones. Like Crazy Jane has amazing, like undertones. Like she is so well written. It's like the whole story is very moving, and then you have, the story itself is great, and then the bad guys, the villains that they have throughout seasons 1 and 2 of Doom Patrol are so well written. But Brendan Fraser and Robot, it's so funny. But the Titans show was really good, and it's parts of it are funny because Beast Boy's kind of silly, but it's very well written. So the way that Peacemaker is being portrayed, where it's still very slapsticky, but it's got a very serious undertone, would fit great in that universe.
Because they're all going to be on HBO Max, I believe. So it's like, it's one of those like, are they going to tie them? Or are they not going to tie them? Or, I don't know what the plan is. I don't know if they know. And then you have the CW verse, I guess I'll dub it, because those are all tied together, but they're not connected with anything else. Although they did establish the multiverse, they had a Crisis event, and we actually had the film Flash appear in the CW show. So they have established that the CW verse does exist in a universe connected to the DC EU. And then you even had the new Superman show, which I believe is even that's on a different Earth than the CW shows. It's so confused. I mean, when you really start digging in, you're like, what the fuck are they doing? And like I said, Marvel's starting to go down this same road where you have all these different things all mixing. And I'm going to go ahead and give one. This is full spoil. This is a spoiler for something that's potentially going to be in the Spider-Man movie. So if you don't want to know it at all, stop listening right now. I'm going to spoil it. But the big rumor is, or slash supposed leak, is that Matt Murdock from the Netflix series will be in the Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, they had. I remember that leaking a while ago, but It didn't really confirm.
Supposedly, it's like confirmed now.
But
Yeah.
that would make me so happy
But
because
they. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying, because to me, when all of Disney basically moved over to their Disney Plus and they canceled Punisher, which was amazing. Daredevil was amazing. The rest of them, they were okay, but uh, but even the Purple Man and Jessica Jones was really well done. Like the Netflix Marvel, the basically the MA or rated R version of their stuff was really good. Like I really liked it. Iron Fist was subpar, but it's
It was
Daredevil.
almost like a Marvel Knights line.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Matt Murdock, that was probably one of the best Daredevil properties that I've ever seen, and I'm a huge Daredevil fan. And between him and Punisher, when they were doing all their crossovers, that was Punisher. Like it was so good. So to get them and basically cancel it frustrated me, but this to me gives me hope that they're going to bring it back to Disney Plus.
Well, so they had officially stated that those shows were not part of the main continuity. Like that was like an official statement. But then the rumor is, or the leak is, that he will be in it. So then it's like, okay, is he just playing himself but a different version of himself? In other words, maybe all the events from that show didn't technically happen with this particular character, or is he brought in from that universe? And then the other now this is a rumor, I don't think this is confirmed. He's going to be in the She-Hulk show because she's a lawyer, and
It
supposedly
makes
he's
sense.
exactly. And but
No.
it's going to be that actor, And so
That'd
I
be
don't know. It's yet again you bring in these things in, and I'm okay with that. But my thing is, wouldn't the TVA be involved in some capacity with all of those things happening if they were to happen?
That would make too much sense, though.
Yeah.
Because I would be super excited if they did that. But to me, it would be a way to bring the TV universe into the TV universe. If you brought Matt Murdock over in that movie, but was like, hey, this is this version of Matt Murdock, and then
Yeah.
him show back up in the shows, you're just like, oh shit,
Because I
okay.
want that Fisk. Like, give
So
me
do I.
give me that
Alfred
Daredevil, that Fisk,
Oh.
please.
That was a good Wilson Fisk, and yeah, that was the best we've had so far. And I doubt we'll get anyone else who does the role just as well.
Larry had to step out for everyone, so he missed our last chunk of our conversation, I believe.
Oh yeah, I definitely did. Yeah, I'm watching a puppy. But
we were just talking about some of all the different, how DC has multiple different kinds of shows that are all in different universes, and Marvel sort of does too, and how they're starting to blend them together in certain ways, and specifically the rumor that Matt Murdock from the Netflix series will appear in the Spider-Man film and the She-Hulk series, but we're not sure if he's the same character or if he's a different version of the character.
right.
We don't know.
Well, yeah, and absolutely, the fact is that Wilson Fisk from the Daredevil TV show. Like, if we're talking about that in the context of him being the Wilson Fisk for the Spider-Man movies, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't see anybody else playing that role.
Yeah, no.
That'd be so good. And to me, this is just making me. I'm probably going to go back and watch it now. Watch Daredevil again.
It's a hell of a show. It's the one thing that the Netflix did that I think is absolutely worth sitting down and rewatching. I don't know if I could say that for any of the others. There are moments I love in the others, but to me, Daredevil was pretty perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, there's some of the others that were pretty bad, and we're not even going to talk about Iron Fist because I don't have 2 more hours. But about how bad that was. They varied a lot. Well, most of them were pretty good, but Daredevil was definitely by far the best.
Followed closely, I think. No, I wouldn't say closely. Followed in second place by Punisher because Punisher was amazing too.
And it tied in a good way. I prefer Punisher in Daredevil I thought those are some great episodes, him on trial and stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, so yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Typical to like we've been doing these reviews. We we talk about the show for about 10-15 minutes and we go off the rails a bit, but it is what it is. And if you're still listening, cool, thank you. Any thoughts on these shows or anything else?
There were rails we were on.
Yeah. What'd you guys think of the Sif loop? I feel bad for that actress. Like, and the reason I say that is she's played Sif so many times, but at this point, it's like when they can't get anyone else, they call her and they're like, "Hey, we need you for a scene." She's like in Shield, and she's like appearing on all these different Marvel things, and I don't. It's just weird at this point.
Yeah. Her name's like Jamie Alexander or something like that. And she was on that show that ended up getting canceled. Like it's like they're trying to give her some screen time, but they're not really planning on giving her any screen time. Which is kind of crappy because she did a good job.
Well, that's what I'm saying. She appears in so many things, but like you just said, it's like they don't really have anything for her, but they always want to be like, well, she was in the movie, so here she is. It's cool, right?
Well, it's almost like they want to keep her on payroll, want to use her because she does a great job. She's a good actress, but they just don't know what to do with her. So they're just keeping her in the loop just in case.
It's like they can't get Idris Elba. Like, he's not going to come do this one little scene. We'll have Sif.
Yeah, it's weird, like you said, that they haven't put her on like a team of any kind because you keep seeing just small little peaks of the character. Very well acted, but I don't know. Like you said, it's very much like this. Like she is a character that they definitely don't know what they want to do with. And I don't know. Maybe she'll have a big role in the next Thor movie that we're getting.
Yeah, I doubt it.
You're probably right. You're probably
like
right.
I said, don't you remember when she appeared in Shield? Like that was a big deal. They're like, Sif will be in Shield, and I was like, so
yeah, nobody cares about that.
I remember hearing it, but I never watched any of Shield. So
that was a clever, smart move, sir. I'm so glad which is hilarious. Anyone who like stuck with it. Because they officially stated that Shield was not canon, which I thought was the funniest shit ever.
After years and years of trying to make it pretend canon, they finally fuck, it's not.
Well, they sort of had to make this call because the Inhumans and all that shit is in the show, and so it's like, well, where are those fuckers at?
They're in the show. I don't understand.
It's like, where were they in the battle for Earth? All these superpowered beings.
Everybody did not need to fight Thanos at the same time. They had other shit going on. They had to deal with Chitara or
some
Morbius or
some Kree without powers. Just some
other
normal Kree people.
Some other B-level villain.
The Eternals were fighting Mole Man that time. But yeah, I guess that's all I really have to say. Have anything else?
I had to go fight Sabretooth and Juggernaut.
Well, nothing other than to say, like, I don't know if we looped back around to this, but I agree with you that the whole scene with Mobius being seemingly killed as far as we know. That whole scene was wasted and should have happened an episode earlier than this Discovery, at least, because like you said, it felt like they pulled at your heartstrings only to say, no, see, everything's good within the same episode, seemingly within minutes of each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even the name, pruning, they didn't want to say, purging or use some more horrific term. It's very Disney, very kid gloves type stuff. But
Yeah, but you could have had the all is lost moment for more than
oh, I agree,
5 minutes. Yeah.
100%. I like the idea of doing it in a previous episode, and like that would have been nice. Or even a moment where before they do it, he gives some little quick talk about how um his life was meaningless and what was the point, like that you could have. There's ways they could have handled it. The best part about the scene hands down was Hiddleston's reaction, because he had genuine horror and
Yeah.
like absolutely was hurt by what was happening.
Yeah, and it was a really, really good performance on his part. And I think Owen Wilson did a really great job in that scene also, like, prior to his death. Just the things he said before he died and everything, and his reaction to knowing what was about to happen, and you know uh you know he himself, sort of, I guess, roughly in this episode, playing the role that Loki did. He was kind of he switched out their controller things, and like he was being a bit of a trickster, and he's trying to pull one over, and just the resignation that he had once he knew that it's like, okay, they're gonna prune me, this is it, and him talking to her about what he would do if he was on Earth. That was a really well acted scene, I think, just for his last moments.
Yeah. Anything else, guys?
That's it for me.
No, sir.
All right. We'll be back next week. I know this episode went up a little later than normal, holiday weekend, but we should have this one up by the weekend. So, or with the next one, excuse me, the next one up by the weekend. So, 2 more episodes. We'll see y'all then, and thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.